At my graduation dinner, Grandma said, "Hope the $3,500 helped." I said, "What money?" And then the entire table went silent. My mother's face turned ghostly white as she clutched her wine glass, and my father suddenly became very interested in his napkin. I looked from face to face, confusion settling in my stomach like a stone. Grandma's smile faltered as she realized something was terribly wrong. "The money I've been sending every month since you started college," she explained slowly, "for your textbooks and living expenses." The restaurant's ambient chatter faded to background noise as I processed her words. $20,000 over 4 years of college, money I'd never seen a penny of. My parents had intercepted and spent every single dollar my grandmother had sacrificed from her retirement to help me. The betrayal cut deeper than any knife. "I never received any money from you, Grandma," I said, my voice surprisingly steady despite the earthquake happening inside me. The truth was crushing my chest. For 4 years, I'd worked 2 part-time jobs while carrying a full course load. I'd skipped meals to afford textbooks. I'd accumulated student loans that would take years to pay off, all while my parents had been cashing checks meant for me. My mother cleared her throat, her fingers trembling around her glass. "Emma, we can discuss this at home," she hissed, her eyes darting nervously around the restaurant. My father wouldn't look at me. Their silence was a confession. Grandma set down her fork with a decisive clink. "Richard, Susan, what is the meaning of this?" she demanded, her voice shaking with anger. Her face had transformed from proud grandmother to fierce protector in seconds. The family secret was out, exposed under the warm glow of the celebration lights I had been so excited about just hours earlier. "We were going to pay it back," my father finally muttered, still not meeting anyone's eyes. "Things have been tight since the recession. Your checks helped us keep the house." My mother nodded quickly. "We were using it for family expenses. That benefits Emma too." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. The audacity of their betrayal was stunning. $20,000, money I had desperately needed while struggling through college, had disappeared into their household budget. Meanwhile, they'd somehow afforded 3 vacations during those 4 years. The trust I had in my family shattered like glass in that moment. "So the cruise to the Bahamas last year, my textbook money paid for that?" I asked, my voice rising despite my efforts to stay calm. A few diners at nearby tables glanced our way, but I was beyond caring about making a scene. The money my grandmother had sent wasn't just currency. It represented her love, her sacrifice, her trust in my future. And my parents had betrayed all of it. "Lower your voice," my mother whispered harshly. "You're making a scene." "I'm making a scene?" I laughed, the sound hollow and foreign to my own ears. "You stole $20,000 from me." My father's face reddened. "We didn't steal anything. We're your parents. What's ours is yours." "What's mine is apparently yours too," I shot back. The unfairness of it all was overwhelming. Every night I'd stayed up working instead of studying. Every meal I'd skipped to save money. Every time I'd cried over my mounting student debt. All of it flashed through my mind in a sickening slideshow. Grandma reached across the table and took my hand. Her skin was soft and cool against my heated palm. "Emma, I had no idea," she said quietly. "I trusted them to give you the money. I'm so sorry." The heartbreak in her eyes mirrored my own. My parents exchanged nervous glances. They knew they were cornered. "We'll pay you back," my mother offered quickly. "We can work out a payment plan." "With what money?" I asked. "If things have been so tight that you needed to steal from your own daughter, how exactly are you planning to pay me back?" The question hung in the air, unanswered and damning. The waiter approached with dessert menus, took one look at our table, and wisely retreated. The graduation celebration was officially over. In its place was a family fracturing before my eyes. "We should discuss this at home," my father repeated, his voice firm but desperate. "No," I said, standing up. "I don't think I want to go home with you tonight, or maybe ever again." The words came out before I had fully formed the thought, but as soon as they were spoken, I knew they were true. How could I live under the same roof as people who had betrayed me so completely? Grandma stood up too, her petite frame somehow imposing as she faced down her son and daughter-in-law. "Emma will be staying with me tonight," she announced, leaving no room for argument, "and we'll be sorting this out properly in the morning." As we walked out of the restaurant, leaving my stunned parents with the bill, I felt simultaneously broken and freed. My family wasn't who I thought they were. The foundation I had built my life on was crumbling beneath my feet, but Grandma's hand was steady on my back, guiding me forward. "I have some savings," she told me as we got into her car. "Not much, but enough to help with those student loans, and we're going to make them pay back every penny they took from you." I looked at my grandmother, this woman who had tried to support me from afar, who had sacrificed from her limited retirement to give me a better chance, only to be betrayed by her own son. The trust between us remained unbroken, a small miracle in this disaster. "I don't know what to do next," I admitted as we drove away from the restaurant, away from the family I thought I knew. "We'll figure it out together," Grandma promised. "Family isn't always who you're born to, Emma. Sometimes it's who stands by you when the truth comes out." As we pulled into the driveway of her small but immaculate house, my phone buzzed with messages from both parents. Apologies, explanations, pleas for understanding. I turned off my phone. Whatever they had to say could wait. Right now, I needed space to process this betrayal and figure out what family really meant. E prosiga ate o final Grandma made up the guest room for me, but sleep eluded me that night. I kept thinking about all the times I'd called home, stressed about money, and my parents had offered sympathetic words but no help. "Welcome to adulthood," they'd say. "Everyone struggles in college." All while cashing checks meant for me. The betrayal felt like a physical weight on my chest. Morning brought clarity along with the sunlight streaming through Grandma's lace curtains. I needed answers and a plan. My phone showed 17 missed calls and 32 text messages, all from my parents. I ignored them and went downstairs to find Grandma already making pancakes, her specialty. "I've been thinking," she said, sliding a plate toward me. "We need to get everything in writing. I have all the canceled checks and bank statements showing the money I sent them for you." Her efficiency surprised me. This wasn't just grandmotherly comfort. This was a woman ready for battle. "What good will that do?" I asked, picking at my food despite the delicious smell. My appetite had vanished along with my trust in my parents. "Evidence," she replied simply, "for when we confront them, and for the lawsuit if it comes to that." The word lawsuit made me choke on my orange juice. "You'd sue your own son." Grandma's eyes hardened. "I raised him better than this. Taking money from his own child?" She shook her head. "Some betrayals can't be excused." The doorbell rang just as I was helping clear the breakfast dishes. Through the front window, I could see my parents' car in the driveway. My stomach twisted with anxiety, but also determination. I wasn't the same person I'd been yesterday. The naive daughter who trusted unconditionally was gone. "We don't have to let them in," Grandma offered, sensing my hesitation. "No," I said, squaring my shoulders. "I want to hear what they have to say." My mother rushed in first, eyes red and puffy from crying. My father followed more slowly, looking both defiant and ashamed. They carried a large manila envelope, which my father placed on Grandma's coffee table. "Emma, please let us explain," my mother began, reaching for my hand. I stepped back, keeping distance between us. The hurt in her eyes might have moved me yesterday, but not today. Not after what I'd learned. "Explain what? How you intercepted money meant for me? How you watched me struggle and said nothing?" My voice cracked, but I forced myself to. "How you took vacations while I worked double shifts and ate ramen for dinner." My father opened the envelope and pulled out bank statements. "Look, we've withdrawn money from our retirement account. It's not the full $20,000, but it's $15,000 to start." He pushed the papers toward me. "We'll pay back the rest over the next 6 months." I didn't touch the papers. "That doesn't explain why you did it." My parents exchanged glances, a silent communication passing between them. Finally, my mother sighed. "Your father lost his job 3 years ago." This was news to me. "What? You've been working at Carlton Industries for 10 years. "I was laid off," he admitted, looking pained. "When the company downsized, I found another job 6 months later, but at half the salary. We were going to lose the house." "So you used my college money to save it?" I asked, trying to process this new information. "We thought we could replace it before you found out," my mother said quietly. "But then your father's mother got sick, and the medical bills." She trailed off, gesturing helplessly. Grandma interjected, her voice sharp. And you didn't think to come to me? To explain the situation? Instead, you stole from your daughter? My father's face flushed with shame. We were embarrassed. We didn't want Emma to worry about money on top of her studies. So instead, you let me work until I was exhausted? I shot back. Let me take out loans I didn't need? We made a terrible mistake, my mother admitted, tears streaming down her face. We convinced ourselves we were protecting you. I laughed bitterly. Protecting me? From what? Financial security? The chance to focus on my education instead of juggling 2 jobs? My father pushed the bank statements toward me again. We can't change the past, but we can try to make it right. I finally took the papers, verifying the withdrawal from their retirement account. It was real. They had liquidated a significant portion of their savings. It didn't erase their betrayal, but it was a tangible acknowledgement of their wrong. This doesn't fix the trust you broke, I said quietly. I don't know if anything can. My mother sobbed openly now. Please, Emma, we made a terrible mistake. We let fear and pride guide our decisions instead of honesty. Grandma, who had been watching silently, spoke up. I have a proposition. We all turned to her. Emma will move in with me for the summer. You too, she pointed at my parents. We'll pay back every penny, with interest, and you'll start by helping Emma with her student loans. My father nodded quickly. Of course, anything. And, Grandma D, you'll tell Emma the complete truth about your finances. No more secrets. If you want to rebuild trust, you start with transparency. My parents agreed immediately, desperation clear in their eyes. I remained skeptical, but nodded my acceptance of the terms. I needed time and space to process everything. Living with Grandma would provide both. As they prepared to leave, my mother tried to hug me. I stepped back again. I'm not ready for that, I told her. The hurt in her eyes was painful to see, but I had to protect myself now. After they left, Grandma and I sat in silence for a long moment. Finally, she patted my hand. Trust takes years to build, seconds to break, and forever to repair, she said softly. They have a long road ahead of them to earn back your trust. I nodded, tears finally coming now that my parents were gone. I don't know if I can ever trust them again. You don't have to decide that today, she assured me, or tomorrow. Take all the time you need. In the weeks that followed, I settled into a routine at Grandma's house. I started a summer internship at a local marketing firm, my first step toward using my newly earned business degree. My parents deposited money directly into my account to begin paying off my student loans, as promised. They respected my request for space, though they sent daily texts just to check in. One evening, about a month after graduation, Grandma handed me a dusty box she'd pulled from her attic. I think you should see these, she said. Inside were dozens of letters, written in my father's handwriting to his parents when he was in college. Many described financial hardships, asking for loans, expressing shame at needing help. It painted a picture of a young man struggling with pride and financial insecurity, much like the man who had betrayed me. I'm not showing you these to excuse what they did, Grandma explained, but sometimes understanding where someone's flaws come from can help you decide whether forgiveness is possible. I spent hours reading those letters, seeing my father in a new light. His actions still hurt deeply, but I began to understand the complex web of pride, shame, and fear that had motivated them. The betrayal wasn't simple greed. It was a messy human failing, born from desperation and poor choices. A week later, I agreed to meet my parents for dinner. Neutral territory. They arrived with more financial documents, a complete breakdown of their income, expenses, and debt for the past 4 years. Their transparency was both surprising and encouraging. We've also set up a separate account for the remainder of what we owe you, my father explained. It's in your name only. We can't touch it. My mother added, and we've started seeing a financial counselor to help us budget properly and rebuild our retirement savings. I studied them carefully, looking for signs of the deception that had blindsided me before. Instead, I saw 2 people humbled by their mistakes, desperate to make amends. I'm not ready to forgive you completely, I told them honestly. But I'm willing to try to rebuild our relationship. Slowly. The relief on their faces was palpable. It wasn't a fairy tale reconciliation. No tearful hugs or instant forgiveness. It was messy and tentative, just like real life. Just like real family. As summer turned to fall, I found an apartment near my new job, close enough to visit Grandma regularly, but giving me independence. My parents did their financial transparency, even showing me their weekly budget updates. Small steps toward rebuilding trust. The money they'd repaid helped me furnish my apartment and build an emergency fund, something I'd never had before. The financial security gave me freedom to focus on my career rather than just surviving. It was the gift Grandma had intended for me all along. One Sunday afternoon, nearly 6 months after that fateful graduation dinner, I invited my parents to my new apartment for lunch. It was the first time I'd initiated contact rather than responding to their outreach. The meal wasn't perfect. Conversations still sometimes halted awkwardly, but it felt like progress. Before they left, I handed my father an envelope. Inside was a receipt for the final payment on my student loans. "Thank you," I said simply, "for keeping your promise to make this right." My father's eyes filled with tears. "We're still working to earn back your trust," he said, "however long it takes." I nodded, not making promises I wasn't ready to keep. Trust was still a fragile thing between us, damaged but slowly mending. Later that evening, Grandma called to ask how lunch had gone. "It was okay," I told her. "Not perfect, but better." "Perfect is overrated," she replied with her usual wisdom. "Honest is what matters." As I hung up, I realized that while the betrayal had shaken my foundation, it had also forced me to build something stronger. I'd learned that family could fail you, but also that true love meant working to make things right. I'd discovered my own resilience and the value of chosen family like Grandma. The money my parents had taken represented more than dollars. It was trust, opportunity, and security. In repaying it, they weren't just settling a debt. They were beginning the much longer process of earning back my trust. And I was beginning the equally challenging process of deciding whether to give it. Standing in my new apartment, surrounded by the life I was building for myself, I felt a strange sense of gratitude for that painful graduation dinner. The truth had hurt. Betrayal always does, but living honestly, even with the messiness it entailed, was infinitely better than living in the shadow of secrets and lies. The money had been returned. The trust would take longer. But for the first time since hearing those fateful words, "Hope the $3,500 helped," I believed that healing was possible, not guaranteed, not immediate, but possible. And for now, that was enough. The secret my parents kept might have broken our family temporarily, but the truth was slowly rebuilding it, stronger, more honest, and with clearer boundaries than before. It wasn't the family story I'd imagined for myself, but it was real. And in its painful authenticity, it was teaching me what true family and true forgiveness might actually look like. 6 months after graduation, I received an unexpected letter from my student loan servicer. It stated that my loans had been paid in full, not just the minimum payments my parents had been making, but the entire remaining balance of over $12,000. Confused, I called the loan company to confirm this wasn't an error. The representative verified that a payment had been made 2 days earlier, completely settling my account. When I asked who had made the payment, she checked her records. "It appears to be from Richard and Susan Mitchell," she said, "my parents." I sat down, stunned. They had already repaid me the money they'd taken from Grandma's checks. This additional payment went beyond what we'd agreed upon. It represented a significant sacrifice on their part, money they could have used to rebuild their own financial security. That evening, I drove to my parents' house unannounced. My mother answered the door, surprise evident on her face. "You paid off my loans," I said without preamble. "All of them." She nodded, stepping back to let me in. "We did." My father was in the living room looking up from his newspaper. "Emma," he said, standing, "we weren't expecting you." "Why did you do it?" I asked. "We agreed on a payment plan. You've already paid back what you took." My parents exchanged glances. "Because it was the right thing to do," my father said simply. "You shouldn't have to carry that debt because of our mistakes." "How can you afford this?" I pressed. You said you were still rebuilding your retirement savings. My mother gestured for me to sit. We sold the boat, she explained. This surprised me. My father loved that boat. He'd bought it just before I started college, calling it his midlife crisis purchase. He'd spent countless weekends on the lake, cleaning and maintaining it with loving care. You loved that boat, I said, turning to him. He shrugged, but I could see the loss in his eyes. I love you more, and I needed to show you that, not just say it. For the first time since learning of their betrayal, I felt something shift inside me. This wasn't an empty promise or an attempt to buy my forgiveness. It was a tangible sacrifice, proof that their priorities had genuinely changed. I don't know what to say, I admitted. You don't need to say anything, my mother replied. We didn't do this to pressure you or speed up the reconciliation process. We did it because we've been reflecting on our values and realized we had them backward for too long. My father nodded. We put material things, the house, vacations, the boat, ahead of what really mattered, honesty and your future. We're trying to correct that mistake. I studied them both, seeing genuine remorse and a humility that hadn't been there before. The past 6 months had changed them, just as they had changed me. Thank you, I said finally. The words felt inadequate, but they were sincere. After a moment of hesitation, I asked if they wanted to join me for dinner. It wasn't forgiveness, not completely, but it was a step toward something new. They accepted immediately, and as we sat at a local restaurant, our conversation flowed more easily than it had in months. When I told Grandma about the loan repayment the next day, she smiled knowingly. They're finally learning what really matters, she said. It took a hard lesson, but they're learning. Do you think I should forgive them? I asked her, valuing her perspective more than ever. She considered this carefully. Forgiveness isn't something you should do for them, Emma. It's something you do for yourself when you're ready. And it doesn't mean forgetting or pretending the betrayal never happened. Her wisdom, as always, resonated with me. I think I'm getting closer to ready, I admitted. Take all the time you need, she assured me. Real healing can't be rushed. Over the following months, my relationship with my parents to evolve. We established new boundaries and expectations. They maintained complete transparency about their finances, sharing monthly statements without my having to ask. I began joining them for dinner more regularly, finding that I could enjoy their company while still protecting my heart. My career flourished without the weight of student debt holding me back. I received a promotion at the marketing firm where I'd interned and started building my own emergency fund and retirement savings, lessons in financial security that had come at a high emotional cost. A year after graduation, I invited my parents and Grandma to my apartment for dinner. As we finished dessert, I raised my glass in a toast. To honesty, I said, and to second chances. The relief and gratitude in my parents' eyes told me they understood the significance of my words. It wasn't a declaration that all was forgotten, but an acknowledgement that we were creating something new from the ruins of what had been broken. After dinner, as my father helped me with the dishes, he spoke quietly. I want you to know that not a day goes by that I don't regret what we did. Not just because we got caught, but because we betrayed your trust. I nodded, appreciating his honesty. I know. Are we okay? He asked, vulnerability clear in his voice. I considered this carefully. We're getting there, I told him truthfully. I don't think we'll ever go back to how things were before, but maybe that's not a bad thing. Maybe we're building something better, something based on truth rather than assumptions. He nodded, understanding the nuance in my response. There was no magic moment of perfect reconciliation, just as there had been no single moment of betrayal. There had been years of small decisions, justifications, and secrets that led to that graduation dinner revelation. Similarly, rebuilding would come through consistent actions, transparency, and respect for new boundaries. Later that night, after everyone had left, I sat on my balcony looking at the city lights. I thought about how one sentence, "Hope the $3,500 helped," had changed the course of my life. It had exposed a painful truth, but also set me free from a web of deception I hadn't even known existed. The money my parents had taken was fully repaid now, with interest. The trust between us was still being rebuilt, day by day, conversation by conversation. I wasn't the same person I had been before learning of their betrayal, and they weren't the same parents. We had all been transformed by the truth, painfully but perhaps necessarily. As I headed back inside, I realized that the most valuable currency wasn't the money that had been taken and returned. It was honesty. And that was something we were all richer in now, despite the difficult path that had brought us here. The next morning, I called Grandma to thank her again, not just for the financial support she'd tried to provide, but for standing by me when the truth came out, for offering wisdom without pushing for easy reconciliation, for showing me what family should really mean. "I didn't do anything special," she protested. "I just did what family is supposed to do, tell the truth and stand by each other." But in a world where secrets and betrayal had become my normal, her simple integrity had been extraordinary. And in the aftermath of betrayal, her steady presence had shown me that while trust could be broken, it could also, with time, effort, and honesty, be rebuilt into something even stronger than before. 2 years after my graduation dinner, I received an unexpected promotion at work that required relocation to Chicago. As I packed up my apartment, sorting through what to take and what to leave behind, my parents came to help. We worked in comfortable silence. The awkwardness of our first post-betrayal interactions long faded. "We have something for you," my mother said as we took a break for lunch. She handed me an envelope. Inside was a check for $25,000, more than they had originally taken from me. "What's this?" I asked, confused. "You've already paid everything back." "It's not about the debt anymore," my father explained. "We've been saving this since we sold the boat. We want you to have a fresh start in Chicago, without financial stress." I stared at the check, emotions swirling. "I can't accept this." "You can," my mother insisted. "Not because we're trying to buy your forgiveness. We know that's not possible. But because we want to support your future the way we should have all along." I studied their faces, looking for ulterior motives but finding only sincerity. "Are you sure you can afford this? What about your retirement?" My father smiled. "We've rebuilt our savings. We're on track now. The financial counselor has kept us accountable. This is money we've set aside specifically for you." After a moment's hesitation, I accepted the check. "Thank you. This will help with the security deposit and moving expenses." "That's what it's for," my mother said. "No strings attached." The money helped ease my transition to Chicago, allowing me to find a comfortable apartment in a safe neighborhood near my new office. But more meaningful than the financial support was the knowledge that my parents had changed. Not perfectly, not completely, but significantly. The people who had once betrayed my trust for financial gain were now sacrificing to support my success. Grandma insisted on visiting me in Chicago once I was settled. At 82, she was still remarkably independent and arrived with a suitcase full of homemade cookies and practical housewarming gifts. "I'm proud of you," she told me as we sat on my new balcony overlooking the city. "Not just for your career success, but for how you've handled everything with your parents." "I learned from the best," I told her, squeezing her hand. She shook her head. "You found your own way through a situation no one should have to face. You didn't rush to easy forgiveness, but you didn't close the door on healing either. That takes wisdom and strength." "Do you think I've forgiven them?" I asked, genuinely curious about her perception. Grandma considered this. "I think you found a new relationship with them, one based on who they are now, not who you thought they were before. That's better than forgiveness based on pretending or forgetting." Her words resonated with me. The relationship I now had with my parents wasn't what I'd once imagined, but it was authentic. We had all seen the worst in each other and chosen to build something new anyway. 3 years after graduation, I was thriving in my career and had started dating someone serious, Michael, a graphic designer I'd met through work. When it came time to introduce him to my family, I faced the question of how much to share about our complicated history. In the end, I decided on honesty. I told Michael about the betrayal, the difficult path to rebuilding trust, and the new relationship we'd forged from the wreckage of the old one. I worried he might see my family as irreparably dysfunctional, but his response surprised me. Everyone's family has secrets and struggles, he said. What matters is how you deal with them when they come to light. It sounds like you've all done the hard work of facing the truth and rebuilding. His perspective helped me see our family story in a new light, not as a singular catastrophic betrayal, but as one chapter in an ongoing narrative about faltering, facing consequences, and finding a path forward together. When my parents and Grandma came to Chicago to meet Michael, I watched them interact with new eyes. My parents were warm but respectful of boundaries, a change from their previous tendency to overreach. Grandma was her usual straight-talking self, asking Michael direct questions about his intentions and values. After dinner, as Michael and my father discussed a documentary they'd both seen, my mother pulled me aside. "Thank you," she said quietly. "For what?" "For giving us the chance to know this part of your life," she explained. "After what happened, you could have kept us at a distance forever. You would have been justified in that." I nodded, acknowledging the truth in her words. "I considered it," I admitted. "But that would have meant letting the betrayal define everything forever." "I'm so sorry we put you in that position," she said, her eyes filling with tears. "Not a day goes by that I don't regret it." "I know," I told her, and I meant it. Time and consistent actions had convinced me of their remorse in a way that words alone never could. Later that night, after everyone had left, Michael asked me a question that made me pause. "Do you trust them now?" I considered this carefully. "Not blindly," I finally answered. "But I trust them to be who they've shown themselves to be these past few years. I trust their effort to make amends and their commitment to honesty. It's a different kind of trust, eyes wide open, with healthy boundaries." He nodded, understanding. "That sounds like real trust to me. Not the fairy tale kind, but the kind that might actually last." 5 years after that graduation dinner revelation, Grandma passed away peacefully in her sleep. At her funeral, my father delivered a eulogy that moved everyone to tears. "My mother taught me about integrity," he said, his voice breaking, "not just through her words, but through her actions. When I failed to live up to her example, she didn't disown me. Instead, she held me accountable and showed me a path back to my better self. She taught me that it's never too late to do the right thing, to face your failures honestly, and to rebuild what matters most." As he spoke, I realized that Grandma's legacy wasn't just the financial support she'd tried to provide me. It was the moral compass she'd instilled in all of us, a compass my parents had temporarily lost but found again through the painful process of confronting their betrayal. In her will, Grandma left me her house and a modest investment account. She left my parents a letter, the contents of which they never fully disclosed to me, though my father's red-rimmed eyes after reading it told me it had affected him deeply. At the reception after the funeral, my mother approached me with a small box. "Grandma wanted you to have this," she said. Inside was a simple silver necklace with a compass pendant. "She said it would help you always find your way," my mother explained, "and that you should trust your own internal compass above all else." I fastened the necklace around my neck, feeling a connection to Grandma that transcended her physical absence. Her wisdom deed to guide me, just as it had during the darkest days after discovering my parents' betrayal. That evening, my parents and I sat on Grandma's porch, sharing memories and grieving together. In our shared loss, I felt the final pieces of healing fall into place between us. The betrayal that had once seemed insurmountable had become part of our shared history. Not forgotten, but integrated into a larger story of failure, accountability, and growth. "She never gave up on any of us," my father said softly, "even when I gave her every reason to." "She believed people could change," I agreed, "and she was right." My mother reached for my hand hesitantly, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel the need to pull away. The gesture wasn't an erasure of the past, but an acknowledgement that we had all traveled a long road together and found something worth preserving on the other side. The money that had once divided us no longer held that power. My parents had repaid their debt, not just financially, but through years of consistent honesty and respect for my boundaries. I had learned to trust again, not with blind faith, but with clear eyes and a strong sense of my own worth. As we sat together under the stars, I thought about the long journey from that shocking graduation dinner to this moment of genuine connection. The betrayal had forced us all to confront uncomfortable truths about ourselves and each other. The healing hadn't come from pretending those truths didn't exist, but from facing them directly and choosing to build something new in their wake. The compass necklace rested against my heart, a reminder that even when trust is broken and certainties shattered, we can find our way forward if we're willing to follow the path of truth, however difficult it may be. In the end, what my parents took from me wasn't just money. It was innocence, blind trust, and a certain kind of family relationship that could never be restored. But what we built in its place, a relationship based on earned trust, honest communication, and mutual respect, was perhaps stronger and more valuable than what had been lost. And that, I realized, was Grandma's greatest gift to all of us. The understanding that even the most painful betrayals can become catalysts for growth if we face them with courage, honesty, and the willingness to do the hard work of rebuilding what matters most.